Okay, so we're going to make short crust pastry. Short crust pastry is the hardest pastry you will make, okay, or one of the hardest. It's a high level skill, do it with year 11. So into this we're going to put in 200 grams of flour, all right, and then we're going to put in 100 grams of margarine or butter. We use half fat to flour, so the ratio is 2 to 1. So we've got 500 grams. How much butter should we use? 250. Okay, so this is half the amount of flour. Oh, don't need to put it in there. Half the amount of flour, butter to the flour. Okay, so sieve that through, and then you're going to rub it in with your fingertips. The butter, I'm saying, you need to think about bringing in block margarine rather than butter if it's the first time you've made short crust pastry, because if you don't, it'll make it crumblier and harder to handle. It's a little bit easier. There's slightly more water in the block margarine than there is in butter, and it works just as well, but a good pastry is usually made with butter. So you're going to crush that down and then rub it in with your fingertips, okay, until it resembles breadcrumbs. Alright, so pick it up, get the flour from underneath and rub it through your fingers. So if you imagine you're scooping sand on a beach, but let that nice golden sand when you're on holiday on the beach, and you're letting it run through your fingers, not that wet soggy stuff that you get on Whitby Beach. Okay, let it run through your fingers, and you're scooping it up from the bottom because the flour falls to the bottom of the bowl. It's going to go quite clumpy together with the rubbing in. Now if you use the tubbed margarine, there's too much water in there, and it's a lot warmer, and it will just clump together into a big lump, and then you won't necessarily need to add water, and then you'll end up struggling to roll it out. So you really do need to try and get the block margarine. Unfortunately, they don't sell it in Lidl or Aldi, they only sell the butter. Alright, so the best place to get them is the bigger supermarkets like Asda, Sainsbury's and Tesco's. Okay, so rubbing it in so it comes together. Alright, you see the change in it, it's changed colour and it's starting to stick. Now don't try and overwork it so that it starts to come together, because you are going to add some liquid to this. So the liquid we're adding is water, but it's ice cold water. Okay, now I'm not sure what lesson you've got this in, but is it first lesson? So make sure, put your flour in the fridge, keep it nice and cold for when you come in. Make sure your fat's in the fridge as well. Please don't bring in lard, it doesn't work. If you're doing fruit pie, not a savoury one. And lard makes the pastry even crumblier, even shorter. Okay, so once you've got it into breadcrumbs, wash your hands, and then a tablespoon. Which one's the tablespoon? The big. Who said the small one? That's a teaspoon. Okay, tablespoon. All right, the biggest spoon that's in your drawer. Okay, and then put 2 tablespoons in to start off with. The water will be at the front of the room. Okay, and you just need to put a little bit in a jug and take it back to where you're working, and share a jug between the two of you. The ice cubes that are in here are reusable ones. They're great for keeping the water cold. Okay, so you're using your fingertips, mixing it in. You don't need a huge amount of water. So once you've mixed it in, squeeze it together. Now we're not kneading this like bread, because you're going to do pizza next. So you're going to be doing quite a bit of kneading and stretching that gluten. But it's a different type of bread. It's a bread that's got a high ratio of gluten in it. This hasn't. Okay, this is what keeps it crumblier and not making it stretchy. So once you've got it into a dough, tip it out onto the table, get rid of your bowl, just pick up those extra bits, alright, and then make sure that it's sticking together. If you're not sure, check with a member of staff and we'll help you with it. Okay, wash your hands again. Again with dough, if you've got lots of dough on your fingers, it'll just carry on sticking. So we're making a fruit pie, so we're going to line a tin and we're going to put a top on. So the sort of tins you need are these sort. Alright, it can be a square one if you've got, they're like a sandwich tin. Or if you've got pie tin at home, then bring a pie tin. So these are cake tins, but they'll double up quite well as a pie tin. But don't bring in the deep cake tins because your pastry won't hold on the side. Okay? So I'm going to use the round one because I think that's easier to roll out to. Then you need to divide your dough up. Now the reason why I've rolled it into like a sausage shape is because I'm going to divide it into three quarters. So I've got my middle. So if I look, that's one. It's not 3/4, 3/3. Not 3/4. All right. So we want 1/3 for the lid and 2/3 for the base. So we'll look at it. It's easier if it's in this shape. And so I'll take 1/3 off, put it over there for the lid, and then you're going to start with the rest of it for the base. Using your flour dredger, a little bit of flour on the worktop, and then this is where people go wrong with when they're rolling out. They just start from here. Okay, get it into, if your tin is round, get it into a circle and then push it down with the palm of your hand. Okay, and start from a flat surface. Okay, little bit of flour on there, and also a little bit of flour on your rolling pin. I know it's first lesson in the morning, but sometimes if they're later on in the day and we've used the rolling pins with other lessons, it just helps to dry out the rolling pin. And then start from the middle and work to the edge. Okay, equal pressure on your rolling pin. Then turn. Use both hands to turn it. If you pull it, it's likely to tear. And you just keep doing this gradually. Okay? Right, so keep rolling it. Okay, and turn. And if it starts to stick, put a little bit of flour on, but don't overuse the flour. If you overuse the flour, you'll end up with the whole pastry just drying out and becoming crumblier and crumblier. Okay, keep going until you get it to the size that it's bigger than this tin. Okay, so keep going, and if it starts to stick, you've got a bit on your rolling pin. If it starts to stick to your rolling pin, get it off, because if the dough's on the rolling pin, it'll pull up the dough on the pastry. Okay, so I've not smothered it completely, and I need equal pressure. So when it starts to stick a little bit more, just you move it around with your hands underneath. You've just got to be gentle with it. The worst you can be is putting too much pressure on. You don't want to be pushing into it. Use the weight of the rolling pin and just let it roll right over. It doesn't matter that it's cracking, because I'm glad it is, because people panic with it. You can patch it up. So get your tin, and if you want help with this bit to lift it up, then just ask and we'll get our hands underneath to help lift it up. So roll it over the rolling pin. Okay, get your tray and then lift it up and just gradually just slide it over the top and then just let it drop in. Okay, don't put it on top of the tin because it'll push the pastry flat onto the tin, and then you need to push it into the tin. So if you push from here, you're going to tear it. So you need to lift the edge in and let it drop into the tin. Okay, just let it drop. Alright, so you've got straight sides. Okay, and if you've got the odd gap, you can fill it in like that. Doesn't matter in the middle of the tin, because at the end of the day, your pie filling is going to go in there. Now this goes against the grain for me. I don't like bringing in tins of ready-made food. Alright, but the focus of this lesson is actually on making the pastry, not the filling. Okay, because if you can make pastry like this, whether it be sweet or savoury, you can make any sort of pies, pasties, all sorts of things, quiches. There's a lot. It opens the door for you to make a lot of different foods. So I'm going to just trim that off, okay, because I can put this on with the lid. If some of you have got bigger tins than this, you perhaps won't have a lot to trim off. Alright, just patch that up a little bit there. That helps the lid stick to it if you've got an extra bit on the top. Okay, then put that with that and just leave that for a few minutes. Now you need to bring in some fruit to put in your pie. The fruit can be whatever choice you want, but it needs to be a filling or topping. Okay, we've had students bringing in fruit salads that are in syrup, and strawberries, tinned strawberries. Tinned strawberries, there's about 5 in a tin. When by the time you take all the juice out, and you don't want all that in there. So it needs to be this sort. And again, Aldi and Lidl don't really sell pie fillings. Alternatively, if you've got apples at home, cooking apples, or you want to stew your own apples down or your own fruit down, you've got spare fruit, then you can do that. You can cook your fruit off and bring that in. Okay, we don't have time in the lesson. Trust me, this will take all lesson for you to do. Okay, and we're not cooking it in the lesson. You're going to take it home and cook it at home. Okay, so get yourself a tin of fruit or stew it down at home. Bring it in. About 400 grams of fruit will be sufficient. Okay, and then just tip the whole tin in. Use the spoon to scrape all the bits out, and then just spread it round. Okay, so about 4 to 5. You could probably, if it's about this sort of size tin, 400 to 500 grams of fruit would do. All right, and then once you've got your fruit in there, you go back to your pastry, and you need to roll out the top. So again, start the same principle, flatten it down, neaten it up on the edge, and then make sure you've got no dough on your rolling pin, and start again with your rolling pin. Start in the middle, work your way out to the edge. So I'm easing it out. I'm not pushing down hard. I'm just easing the pastry out. Okay? And it won't need to go quite as big this time because it's the lid. So as long as it's big enough to go over the top and around the edges, that's fine. See, I've got dough sticking on the rolling pin again. But just keep moving it around and pick up the extra bits of flour that might have moved around on the worktop. And again, it's cracking and what have you, but that's what it does. It's short crust pastry. Keep going with this until you get the size that you want. And if you're not sure, you can just bring the tin over. That's not big enough. Okay. And then you don't, again, the thickness is important as well. You really don't want a thick lid on it. All right, you've got, and you don't, your base shouldn't be too thick either, because you don't want all pastry and no fruit. So I think that would probably just about go over. Yeah. So the same principle again. Just roll it up on the rolling pin. Get your pie dish. Lift it up, and then just let it go over the top. Like that. Okay, we'll help you with this if you need it. All right, and then just go round the edges and seal the edges together. Okay, with your thumb. You could use a fork to finish it off, or a butter knife. I always use my thumb or my fingers. If you've got quite a bit of pastry, you could pinch it, but that's sufficient. And then again, just trim round the edges. Take the edges off. Okay, if you're not confident holding it up like this, then you can do that on the board or on the table. Okay, and then 2 incisions. All right, and that's done. So when you get it home, what you can do is glaze it. I wouldn't waste an egg unless you're cracking eggs for something else. Glaze it with a bit of milk, sprinkle a bit of sugar on the top. You get a nice crispy top to your pie. Okay.